Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Let's kick off US Open week from Pebble Beach. It's a big one. I love the US Open, the most difficult of the four majors. We got Father's Day vibes. Hopefully, as a new father, I can parlay some of that into just almost like how Danny Willett used baby swag to win the Masters. Hopefully I can win first Father's Day swag to actually not lose all my money on DraftKings this week, or maybe hit a winner in the outright market. We'll see, though. Odds are that's not going to happen. But if you want to get into a draw for, well, a bunch of stuff, 100 DK dollar tickets to the Millionaire Maker, some $20 tickets as well, all you need to do is smash the like button for this video, leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section, and give me your pick to win the US Open in 2019 from Pebble Beach. Or if you subscribe to the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, that would be iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, no matter where it is, leave a 5-star review, something nice about the show, your DraftKings handle. Hey, you're in that exact same draw. Finally, follow me on the Instagrams at the PME, and you see one of the US Open stuff pop up, give that a quick heart, and then after you follow it, just leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. You'll be in the draw for all of this stuff. More draws to come during the week. We are still on a YouTube ban. However, if this somehow makes its way up to YouTube, I will let you know that the Listeners League link is available on my Facebook page, facebook.com/thepme, because that's where you can find all of the videos right now. So it'll be in the description of the video up there, or in the description of all of the podcast links. That's how you get into the draw, or that's how you get into the DraftKings Listeners League for the US Open. A ton of money guaranteed. It is rake free, so shout out to DraftKings for that, plus all the giveaways that we're having here. It's $15 to enter, 3 max entry, so you might want to get your spot right now. The Masters one filled pretty quickly. The PGA Championship one filled pretty quickly. I have a feeling this one is going to fill pretty quickly as well, so you may want to get into that. Plus, you got to become a member at fantasynational.com. If you don't, I don't know what you're doing. You got to give your head a shake if you haven't figured that out yet. So just go to fantasynational.com, become a weekly, monthly, or as I am, an annual subscriber. Get every stat you can use, customizable course breakdowns, and the new anti-bias mode where you can hide the players' names and just see the stats of what's going on. And then all of a sudden you're clicking on Keegan Bradley and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? I'm going to lose all my money. But hey, sometimes it works out for old Keegan. We'll see though. Joining me to talk about the course, to break down the narratives in the very top of the betting board, from Fairway, Rollin, Joe House, my man. What's going on?
Wow, Pat Mayo. I'm on the Experience. This has been a long time coming, my brother. I'm very, very excited. But before we begin, I didn't know this was going to be video. What picture of me are you using for this?
You are a tough man to track down on the internet to find a picture. So I scraped your Instagram feed. There is a very beautiful picture of you with Mr. Michael Wilbon, and we just cropped him out of it and put you into it. You look sharp.
Oh, thank you for that. That's right. Yeah, that was a rare occasion when I got dressed up. I didn't know I was going to see Wilbon that day, but I'm glad I was. I want to look handsome. One of my rules, Pat Mayo, ABH, always be handsome. And so it worked out for that event.
I mean, at some points in my life, I could not abide by those rules, no matter how sharp I dress. I feel like I'm feeling myself right now. So I'm wearing this fancy. You can't see me, but I'm wearing my my light blue blazer, which people get very triggered over, and I just enjoy it.
Why? What's there to get triggered about? What's wrong with the handsome light blue blazer?
I don't know. It's like I bought it off the rack, didn't get it tailored. I've never had a suit fit me so well in my life, so I just always wear it. I'm breaking out a fancy new suit for the DraftKings Millionaire Maker show next Tuesday. And plus, Feinberg and I will be breaking down the entire field on Monday, so check back to the Facebook page to watch all the videos. Subscribe to that podcast feed, by the way, people out there. But I got an awesome suit that I also just bought off the rack. Same place, I think they have... the place that I buy these cheap suits that are kind of nice, they're like when you go to TJ Maxx in the States, and all of a sudden you have a designer brand, but there's something wrong with it. Apparently they're just wrong sizes, but they fit me perfectly. It's awesome.
There you go. So you're a wrong size human being, but perfectly sized for the discount racks. You can get some beautiful Hugo Boss there, maybe a nice Venya. I mean, why not? Go do you, Pat Mayo.
Yeah, and if I can save money doing it, because as we all know, my golf bets have not been great over the course of the year. I gotta save money wherever I can. But let's talk about the course. Pebble Beach, everyone is used to it during this Pro-Am. We haven't seen a major here since 2010 with Blackjack McDowell outlasting Dustin Johnson, who imploded on the Sunday, kept hitting balls in the water. That was no fun for him. And then before that, it was Tiger in 2000, ran away from everyone. You have an illustrious list of guests on your podcast, Fairway Rollin, which you can check out on the Ringer Podcast Network. Like Chris Harrison was just on. He's a member there. He's seen it. Like, there's going to be no fairways, are there?
He was describing the fairways as strips of bacon. So that resonates. You know, my other podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, House of Carbs, that is right up my alley. He was speaking my language. He understood that I would understand that reference in terms of how narrow these fairways are. The other way that he described the shaping and contouring that is occurring as we speak, Pat Mayo, they are shaving down some of the rough on some of the holes where the edges come close to like the cliffs and so forth.
Oh, God.
And we saw this in 2010 with DJ, where balls that under any other circumstance and any other condition that you would hit off the tee, there is a danger that's being introduced of balls rolling like off the cliff. I think he mentioned like number 8, that's a possibility. Maybe number 12. I don't recall all of them specifically, but I do have a strong recollection of watching DJ on that front 9, smashing balls either into the water off the cliff or into the high fescue or other kinds of plants that they grew up specially for the U.S. Open. And I expect the exact same kind of concept. He talked about them growing the fescue up around the bunkers. So the bunkers are going to be true hazards in play. And, you know, they can easily just sort of let that thing grow a little hair, and it becomes a golf course that we see once every 10 years, which is exactly where we are now with this U.S. Open.
So what do you make of all of the guys that have had like good Pebble Beach history coming in? Because obviously during the Pro-Am, this year Phil was just hitting it wherever he wanted to off the tee and then coming out of the rough and hitting it to 4 feet and making every putt. That is not going to be in play for Phil or anyone this week if they want to try to bomb and gouge Pebble Beach. At least I don't think so, with the way that I typically picture the rough in my mind with the USGA setup. And you're talking about a strip of bacon. I mean, this might even be like a strip of turkey bacon. There's no fat on those edges. So it might be even smaller than usual. So does that mean, like, at least the way that I'm thinking about it, does that mean like Snedeker and Kevin Kisner and Ryan Almail? Like, are those the type of players, and Jim Furyk even, like, they have a better shot this week as opposed to most U.S. Opens, which are like 7,650 yards, where it's Brooks, it's Dustin, and maybe someone who gets hot with long irons?
So it is going to be, I think, closer to that leveling effect that you mentioned of bringing in short hitters. It's the shortest or second shortest by yardage venue on tour. And it plays that way for the AT&T. The best the USGA can do is to stretch it out to just under 7,100 yards. I think they're playing it at 70, 75 this year. And a lot of that yardage comes from taking 17 back across the road. You know, they're not going to let the amateurs, you know, they usually play 17 in the Pro-Am on the side of the road where the road's not in play, and they have the grandstands up and everything. None of that is part of the U.S. Open formulation. 17, they push all the way back. It plays between 210 and 230, depending on where they want to put the tee box. And there is nothing to block the wind coming in off of the water on 18 and adjacent to 17. So all by itself, they pick up some yardage there. But I don't know what to think exactly, Brother Mayo. Pebble has this reputation of being a second shot golf course in a way that I think Augusta National has a reputation of being a second shot golf course, with the stark difference being Pebble in U.S. Open conditions will not permit guys to just hit the ball anywhere. You have to be in the fairway to have any chance at all. And that's how we got, you know, all these crazy scores above par, both back in 2000 when Tiger dominated, and again in 2010. I expect the combination of length and accuracy to definitely make for an opportunity for guys that you mentioned, like Furyk, who I'm going to look at as top 10 and top 20 plays. I'm not going to pick him to win, but also guys like Snedeker and Kiz.
Well, it's funny with Snedeker because he's won at the Pro-Am twice. He was inside the top 10 when they had the U.S. Open in 2010 here as well. Like, just looking back at these names of like the top 10 on the leaderboard from that year, you have like Graham McDowell, a shorter hitter, accuracy guy who's excellent at putting. Then you have Gregory Avray from France, and I know what the hell he was doing at +1. I mean, he lost by a stroke. We're not going to see Avray this time around. But then you got like Ernie, Phil, and Tiger, who at the time, I mean, Tiger was sort of a cut above everyone else, but Phil and Els, based on their skill sets, they were longer hitters at the time. They are not now, but in 2010, they were some of the longest guys on tour with good short games, both pretty good putters. Then you have Matt Kuchar and Davis Love at +4, who came in 6, and they're sort of the prototypical good iron players, good around the green, good putters, but they're going to hit every single fairway and not be super long off the tee. Then you have Alex Chekya, who even at the time was one of the shortest players on tour. Dustin Johnson, who was running away with the entire thing and imploded with the 82 on Sunday. Then you have Keimer and Snedeker, both. I mean, Snedeker's accuracy is kind of all over the map. He's sort of like Patrick Reed in that vein, but like Keimer is a accuracy player who, you know, he can get the putter rolling, as we saw at Memorial 2 weeks ago, but it just seems like everyone is in play for this week. So even like the total driving stats, even if you look at accuracy stats, I don't think it's necessarily going to reflect the players that are going to hit a bunch of fairways this week, because so many players are going to be playing less than driver, aren't they?
Absolutely. I think we're going to see a ton of these 2-iron stingers, and that's why, you know, sort of some of the early enthusiasm for Tiger that you see based on how he performed on Sunday at the Memorial. I've seen footage already of the 3 different tee balls that are going to be required for him to be successful at Pebble. The low stinger that has like a smidge of a draw or a smidge of a cut, depending on which shape he wants to hit it. He had command of that shot. He had the high draw. There are like 4 holes on the golf course where hitting a high draw will be important, and that one of them being 14, which I think is going to be not reachable in 2, but who the hell knows. And then his butter cut that he has working now, which is his fairway finder that he uses driver on, but you know he's managed to squeeze the dispersion down so much with that. He had incredible numbers here at the Memorial, 42 out of 56 fairways and 12 out of 14 in the final round. I mean, the stinger is working. So I expect, like, guys like Koepka, he won the U.S. Open at Shinnecock going 2-iron off the tee virtually, you know, every hole. The same is true of DJ. But I wonder if it brings in some guys that we like, sort of hyper accuracy. I think this is going to be big emphasis on strokes gained approach and certain like yardages, proximities that'll come into play. And what does that mean for somebody like Stenson?
I mean, if Stenson could roll in a putt, I bet him to win the Canadian Open. I've been betting him for like the past 5 tournaments, and the guy can't chip, the guy can't putt, but it seems like he's going to put himself into as good of a position as possible. And he so rarely plays Pebble, and it seemed like a lot of people skipped it. Do you think it's a disadvantage to have played it every single year based on, hey, I'm so familiar with this course, I know where everything is, then you show up, and all of a sudden, yeah, you're not hitting driver, you're hitting 2-iron off the tee, so all your iron shots are completely different. All of a sudden, you're hitting like 200-yard high balls into like basically island greens over water that it just might mess with your head?
I don't think so, because they don't change the sizes of the greens. And, you know, the green size is like it's kind of a shock, I think. I saw Pebble for the first time in my life. I flew out there and attended the U.S. Amateur in August, and I couldn't believe how small the greens were. Like, I'm going to have an opportunity at some point in my life to play Pebble. I don't know. I guess I'll just try and hit to the front of every green and then roll it on. The greens seem impossible to hit for regular human beings. So I don't subscribe to the idea that somebody coming in cold who skipped the the Pro-Am event is going to have any kind of an advantage at all. I think those guys are in trouble. I mean, I'm looking especially at one guy whose initials begin with Rory McIlroy.
Really? I think a lot of what happens in Canada this week at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, and I like the way that the Canadian Open has done this. It did seem like the tournament organizers really tried to grow up the rough off the fairways. It's a shorter course. It also has very tiny greens, and I think that's why you see such a strong top end of the field that people are using this week at the Canadian Open to really get their minds around, hey, I need to club down off the tee. I need to hit fairways, and I need to figure out some strategy around this course because, well, you're not going to deal with the wind or the sort of weather that you might get at Pebble Beach, but I think the course layout is eerily similar.
You're absolutely right, and it is a testament to the folks running the RBC that they had the foresight. I don't know if it was deliberate or not to marry up the Hamilton venue with the same year that the guys are going to be at Pebble, and this schedule change has them positioned perfectly for guys wanting to go try some stuff out, even though it's a 2,000 mile, the venue's 2,000 miles away. Guys are just going to jump on their jets Sunday night and zoom on off to the West Coast of America, I guess. It's not easy travel, I don't think. But I guess if you have your own jet, it's not an issue, but super stellar field up there at Hamilton.
So I guess the big thing, they didn't know that they didn't know the schedule change was going to move the RBC before the US Open when they announced Hamilton. I think they didn't necessarily redesign the course, but I think they changed conditions from normally what it would be. But you're probably still looking at a winter around like -15, where that's absolutely not going to be the case at the US Open. So it's a bit easier than what you're seeing. But I think the mindset that you have to go in of how you're going to have to play the course is going to be somewhat similar. I actually thought that this is a great position for the Canadian Open. As a Canadian, I want the Canadian Open to be like a real thing every single year. It's the third oldest national championship in the world. There was a time when if you could win the British, the US, and the Canadian all in the same year, Jack Nicklaus did it once. He believed he is the only guy. Tiger may have done it in 2000. I can't quite remember. But it used to be like the Triple Crown of golf. Now just no one cares about the Canadian Open. So even people in Canada don't care about the Canadian Open. But they really should get in line with, hey, where is the US Open going to be? Like, they really missed a chance to bring Shaughnessy back into the rotation, which is in BC. And that is like a US Open style course. I think the winning score there, the last time they had it, Sean O'Hare won. I think it was like 2013 or 2011 or something like that. It was like -3. It's like a tree line. You have to hit it in the middle of the fairway. And if you miss the fairway, you're absolutely screwed. So it'd be nice to see them proximity-wise line it up with the US Open. That way, I think you'd get a better field and then gear the course for the conditions that you might see at the US Open, which kind of works out well because Glen Abbey is out of the rotation, which is like the easiest course ever.
Right. And DJ just went out there and ate it up 2 consecutive years.
And Johnny Vegas as well. I mean, Johnny Vegas is Mr. Glen Abbey, won back-to-back years. Guys like Charlie Hoffman. I'm just looking at a initial run of like the stats modeling. I put in fairways gained and driving distance gained against the field on Fantasy National and who it spit out. So guys with like plus distance and plus accuracy coming into the US Open, no one rates out better than Paul Casey of all people. I'm just looking at his numbers right now. And he kind of screwed everyone over when he withdrew at Colonial, but coming off a missed cut at Sony, he was second at Pebble the next week. He missed the cut at the Players. He won the next week at Valspar. He missed the cut at the Masters. The next time he played, he came 4th at Wells Fargo. Are we sleeping on Paul Casey?
I don't know. He broke my heart by that miscut at the Masters. I think that was he was a crucial part of my make the cut parlay, 8-way make the cut parlay, and he blew me out of the water there. Because he was really in form and he loves the Masters and it's a second shot golf course and everything was lined up. I still haven't gotten a good explanation as to what happened there. He's still in the top 20 in strokes gained approach. I'm really looking for guys inside that top 20 as guys with the potential to win this. The problem with Paul Casey to me is he needs to win. Well, kind of. He needs to win coming from behind. I mean, it was a true revelation when he won the Valspar, holding the lead going into the final day, and he put the hammer down. That is not Paul Casey's MO. He'd won it the previous year by shooting a low score, 6 groups behind, and then hanging on, or however many groups behind he was. But I do like his makeup. I like his attributes for this, and him having finished second, recently in February means he's got a good feel for the place. I mean, I do think that there is some carryover effect just in terms of like the comfort level of physically being there. Like he's where he's going to stay and the logistics of it. and what it's like being out there walking around. Even though the golf course will play differently, I do think there is benefit to some of that, the environs of familiarity. And I do think it'll be easy for him to sort of call on some of those positive recollections that he developed back in February. I like him. He's not going to win the U.S. Open. I mean, let's just get that out of the way. But for sure, like a top 10, a top 20, that's worth a little action, right?
I think so. He's come second and eighth the past 2 years at Pebble Beach. The only two people with better records than him are Phil, who was first and second, and Jason Day, who was second and fourth. It's just weird with Paul Casey, because a lot of what he attributed his success to this year was his playing partner. And I think that might be the biggest thing that switches between the Pro-Am and an actual U.S. Open, is just the pace of play is so slow at the Pro-Am, because you have basically me out there hacking the ball around, making 20s on every hole. That like they play like 6.5, 7 hour rounds. That's just not going to be the case. So, and when I think about like slow players that might be able to ratchet it up a bit, like I don't think that affects Jason Day, the guys, or Patrick Cantlay for that matter. Like they're so slow to begin with that, hey, let's just play Pebble Beach. It's like playing a normal round for me.
Well, I mean, it's not like the U.S. Open has set speed records. I mean, it's still going to be 5 hour rounds with the kind of grinding that's required, and because of the size of the greens, and guys are not going to be hitting greens in regulation. I forgot. I was reminded the year that Tiger put on his epic, all time 12 under display. The field average greens in regulation was under 50%. It was 48.5 or something like that. And Tiger was 71% greens in regulation percentage that event. And by the way, that felt low to me when in my mind's eye was remembering him going out there kicking everybody's ass. But so those are the guys, the greens in regulation guys are guys that we want, and Casey scores out well there.
Yeah, I mean, you can bet both Paul Casey and Keegan Bradley, and just how could you lose?
Keegan Bradley. Let's not talk about him any further. There's nothing to say. Seems like a nice fellow.
That's why you got to use the anti-bias mode on Fantasy National, because you see Keegan Bradley with these fantastic stats, and you're like, there's no way that I'm ever putting a star next to that guy's name. You put it on anti-bias, you're like, geez, that guy's stats look great. And that's how it all ends up working out. That's why DraftKings lineups lose every single week. So I'm like, oh, this is definitely, he's not going to lose 8 strokes putting this week. That would be impossible. Same reason I'm like, I bet Ben Ann every single week, but the guy just can't make a 3-foot putt. It's kind of difficult. So anything else about the course? You mentioned the tiny greens, and if Tiger's the only one who hit above 70% in 2000, if it's going to be around like 50%, guys aren't going to be hitting those. Is there an emphasis on short game then?
It has to be, right? I mean, the guys at the top of the rankings in scrambling and around the green have to be guys that we plug in. Strokes gained around the green is going to be one of your metrics. Let me hear right now, as you formulate, what are you using? What are the 5 Mayo metrics as you develop your thesis here for the guys that you want to be successful? What are you plugging into Fantasy National?
So what I did is I just kind of recopied my Canadian Open one. So I haven't done the deep dive yet, but I split it up into what I call total driving. Now, total driving on the PGA Tour site is just, hey, what's the ranking of driving distance? What's the ranking of driving accuracy? And let's add those together. Whoever has the lowest summation ends up being at the top. I don't really feel like that tells you anything. So what I did is I broke it up. I have 20% allocated to driving, just in terms of accuracy and distance. I have it as 13% accuracy and 7% as driving distance inside the model right now. I put 30% on ball striking. I have 15% on opportunities gained, which is a stat from Fantasy National, which means it's a green in regulation or fringe in regulation from 15 feet and in, which could really go a long way this week. It's like a better version of greens in regulation, and I think it really helps with the small greens this week. Like who hits the ball inside basically 15 feet a ton, who has a legitimate birdie putt, and frankly isn't just spraying the ball around, because there's no place at Pebble to 3-putt from 80 feet, because you're just going to be in the rough. I have around the green. I have par 4s from 400 to 450 yards. I may need to amend that only when I see what the scorecard is released, where all these par 4s actually plop down, and then just strokes gained approach. So when I rank all that stuff out, the best guys in the field are Hideki, Cantlay, Rory, Dustin, Tiger. Those would be the top 5, just based on that modeling over the past 50 rounds of play.
But there's only one guy that I would cross off that list, and it's Rory. But I think I'm going to definitely be betting on all 4 of the other guys to win this tournament in some form or fashion. I mean, they're going to be part of parlays. They're going to be part of matchups. I'm bullish on all of those guys. I'm out on Rory. This is before the RBC, so I'm going to reserve judgment in terms of how I might allocate capital on Rory until how we see him perform. But what has happened to him? He backdoored in a top 10 at the PGA Championship out at Bethpage because he got a really super good, having barely made the cut on Friday, he got a good weather window on Sunday to go out and shoot an under-round par. And that had the effect so many guys who played later than him in the day went exactly in the opposite direction. And he was managed to climb up inside the top 10, but he's been so lackluster lately. What's going on with him?
Well, last week in Memorial, he couldn't drive the ball. It was the first time he lost strokes off the tee since the PGA Championship at Bellerive when he was like 0.02 in the negative. And before that, the last time he lost 1.5 strokes off the tee in 2 rounds of just weighted data, which is just so atypical. Rahm is sort of the same way. But the last time he lost more than 1 stroke off the tee was the 2017 BMW Championship. So I think that was a bit of an aberration. If we throw out the Memorial from last week, and you just see his results, like you think of Rory, it's like, oh, why isn't he winning? But the results are just kind of crazy, like 8th, 21st, 1st, 6th, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 4th, 54th, 7th, 5th, 12th. That was since last year's PGA Championship. So he's right around it. And the putter has been lackluster over the 2 of the past 3 events. He lost at Memorial. He lost at Wells Fargo. Part of the reason that he was able to keep himself afloat, only the good win, the weather draw at the PGA Championship, but he gained almost 4 strokes putting on the field. And that was on POA. I expect that could be one of the differences of the course, too. If the USGA gets their hands on these greens, maybe the greens don't run quite as slowly as they normally do during the AT&T.
Yeah, right. And you guys have on Fantasy National a nice way to isolate POA performers. And in the past, I have used that. There are some guys who are notoriously bad putters who have, for whatever reason, better performances on POA. We saw this with, I used it with both Bubba and with Sergio.
Oh, me too.
Counting on it didn't work out for us.
No, if we look at it right now over the past 50 rounds, just POA putting performances, and maybe West Coast POA is different than East Coast POA. That's what I'm going to attribute it to, just a lack of foresight and real investigation on my part. But over the past 50 rounds, your top 10 in POA putting are Day, DJ, Carlos Ortiz, Cam Smith, Billy Hurley, Latois, Phil Mickelson, Kisner, Spieth, Luke Donald, and the General, Richard H. Lee. So, and Adam Scott is shockingly right after that as well. Guys who suck on POA. Ben Ann, no big surprise there because he sucks on every surface. Glover, Molinari, Keith Mitchell, Ricky Fowler, a very poor POA putter. Roberto Castro, Johnny Vegas, Duffner, Ryan Fox, Rory Sabatini, Scotty Scheffler, Lucas Beauregard. So the guys that you would expect to be bad at putting are bad at putting. It does seem like the good putters tend to be more consistent on POA greens, though.
I'm bummed out about Molinari falling into that category of being a bad POA putter because I do think he has otherwise kind of a perfectly calibrated set of attributes to go kick ass at the Open. I'm just not going to. I can't do it with him being in that bottom tier on POA.
I think Molinari is a bit of an exception, though, because he's generally a bad putter. But if you get the good putting week, the rest of his game is so sharp. It's almost like I talk about with Luke List, where, hey, if Luke List has a good putting week, he's probably going to win. But Molinari is significantly better than he is. So you know that he's going to have a good tee to green week. And we've seen him it's a lot like Rory in that way. And maybe it's just the API connection. When Rory went bananas and gained 10 strokes putting in 1 round to win 2 years ago, Molinari gained 7 strokes putting in his final round this year to come back and win. So it does feel like when he's hot, he stays hot and he can just drain everything from anywhere. But most of the time he's going to be bad.
Yeah. I just don't know the length got him at Bethpage, and it felt like, it's kind of time to maybe tap the brakes on the Molinari momentum. But I'm not prepared to rule him out entirely for the Open. There's just too much good ball striking, and too much big game in him over the last calendar year to just wipe him off the page.
Yeah, even at the PGA, he gained 6 strokes on approach. He just happened to lose 5 strokes putting. So it's not like the irons were completely off. They were completely off at the Charles Schwab because he had one really bad round at Colonial, but he still gained 2 off the tee. Like he's one of these guys that's just going to hit every single fairway. He's good with his long irons. He's a lot like Stenson in that way, except he tends to putt better than Stenson, at least this year, because Stenson can't drain a 3-foot putt. That's the part that's about Stenson that worries me. But I can just see myself, maybe if he wins this week, I can back off of him a little bit because I'll have my Stenson money. I'll be happy, and just I don't see him going back to back. But if he can just be neutral against the field putting and hit all these small greens, like he's the type of guy that I kind of want at a US Open. And even if you go back and look at it, like the first round leaders and like his winners, let's pull this up. First round leaders, like last year, Stenson was 6th after round 1. 2 years ago or 3 years ago at Chambers Bay, he was tied for 1st after round 1. It's basically him, Brooks Koepka, and Dustin Johnson, whose names that you see at the top of the leaderboard after round 1. DJ's been inside the top 10 after round 1 of 4 of the past 5 US Opens.
Well, maybe that's the play, because I bet we're going to get decent odds on Stenson as a first-round leader.
Maybe. That's not how I play I like to play like 10 first-round leaders and just play everyone from above 100 to 1. You only need to win once every 10 weeks to be profitable. You win twice, you got yourself covered for the entire year. And in Canada, we have the each-way bets. So you get yourself, you get half your money on first, but also half your money on the top 5. So if like Seb Straka comes inside the top 5 at 250 to 1, it's still a pretty nice payday on the each-way.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Stenson as the correct. What's the correct way to play him? Because we can't, in good conscience, play him to win. And I understand you're hoping that he wins this week so you can just stay away altogether. But like, there's just too much there in terms of the current ball striking form to leave him off altogether. So first round leader might be my play. Maybe a first round leader in a top 20. But, he only has one top 10 finish this whole year, Pat Mayo. It's incredible.
But he can't putt. Like, he should be missing every single cut. But he's dropping 5 strokes a week on the greens, and the guy can't. The chipping's actually got a little bit better. He's also, like, bleeding strokes off the tee. But that's mainly due to distance. He's still, like, top 5 in accuracy, which I think will go a long way. It's not like he needs to adjust his game for Pebble whatsoever. He's just going to take his 3-wood, and he's going to put it out there 260 yards and keep it in the center of the fairway, and then he's just going to hit his long irons like he always does. So he should be fine. Like, he sets up really well for this course. And I got into a debate with someone the other day about like US Open form coming in, like, because that's always a thing that I do like to look at. Like, with the way that this is set up by the USGA, it tends to remain fairly uniform year after year after year with the long rough. Aaron Hills was probably the big exception to that because everyone was just able to hit the fairway because you could land a jumbo jet in there. Not going to be the case this week. But do you look more at US Open form? Because I don't feel like this correlates really all that well with the other US Open courses, especially like where it's on the coast and you're going to have wind in play and you have these POA greens. I actually think it might correspond a little bit better because of the length and the conditions of some of the British Open courses that we've seen over like the past 5-6 years.
I like that a lot, and I like that analogy. Again, I'm not going to prolong this Molinari love, but I thought Molinari, the kind of game that he showed up with at the Masters, was a U.S. Open kind of game. He was saving par from all over the place because he can't hit the ball 300 yards or 320 and then have flipping wedges in, and all the way up until the 12th hole, he was showing a steeliness. And it makes sense that steeliness, that kind of U.S. Open game, having watched what he did at Carnoustie. So I like this link, this correlation that you're drawing between the Open Championship and this kind of U.S. Open. This is going to be a radically different U.S. Open than what we've seen the 3 previous years. You're absolutely right. We're just going to see a ton of guys teeing off with irons. They're going to be utility irons off of so many holes. We're going to see driver so rarely. And we have, these tiny greens with approaches 8, 9, 10, and 17 are all going to require long irons into small greens. And so who are the ball strikers that have that? I want to look at proximity from 175 to 200. those guys are going to be the guys that I'm going to lay into a little bit. We know Molinari has that. He excelled with that at API, and he also scored well at that lead coming into the Masters, and it was the thing I think that had him in the mix to win the Masters. So, I like the idea of linking up, recent Open championships to this Pebble venue, and why, maybe we're going to get somebody that's not American to win a major for once.
Yeah, that would be kind of shocking, based on the recent track record that we have. So I'm just looking at it right now. Over the past 50 rounds, do I still have POA clicked? I do still have POA clicked. So I'll unclick POA because I don't know how much that's going to affect the approach. It's more the putting than anything else, and see what pops up, because I was like, Luke Guthrie, that seems strange. The best players in the U.S. Open field from 125 or 175 to 200 yards over the past 50 rounds in proximity gained against the field are Tom Hoge, Hao Tong Lee, Leishman, that's very interesting, Patrick Cantlay, Shane Lowry, Brooks, Shez Reavie, Hideki, Tiger, Justin Rose, and oh God, Bjorn Hanan.
But listen, we keep hearing these names. I keep hearing Brooks, Hideki, Tiger, Cantlay. You know what I mean? Like we're building a book. I'm not hanging up with you on this podcast today until we've made it an 8-way make the cut parlay.
Those numbers aren't out yet is the problem. It's so hard to do.
I just want the guys. I don't care about the numbers. All I care about are the guys. Who do we trust? Who do I trust? I've been let down twice this year. John Rahm pegged me at the PGA Championship. That venue was built for him. If he was going to have a breakthrough moment, that venue, those circumstances should have been it. And he broke my heart with the Friday 75. And Paul Casey, gunned it out at the Masters. We need 8 guys we trust, Pat.
It's going to be tough with these U.S. Open conditions. You never know. Maybe the thing would be to do is to wait as long as possible, because the books rarely adjust to this, and just see what the weather dries. Like if there's like a very clear like AM PM split in the first round, bet all your first round leaders in that wave too, and then just make the cut parlay with like basically the same guys.
I like that. Yeah, I thought we might have that with the first 2 rounds of the PGA Championship. It didn't really play out. So the weather, we were supposed to be bad weather in the morning on Friday, and then it sort of turned around, and there was some rain in the afternoon. But the weather on Thursday and Friday was not really the story for those first 2 rounds. And
it was tough because it looked like it was going to be the case, but the weather forecast, I use windfinder.com, and I try to find, I believe they're hunting towers. Is what they do, but they're really close to some of these courses. And it was flipping like every 3 minutes or so. It's like, oh, it's going to rain 2 inches on Thursday. And it's like, then it's not going to rain the entire week. So if it remains somewhat consistent from like you look Monday, you look Tuesday, you look Wednesday, and it remains fairly consistent, I think then you can kind of trust it just a little bit. But we know the weather. It's just going to be topsy-turvy the entire time anyway. But narrative-wise, I'm not hearing a ton about Tiger coming into this, and maybe it's just because we're like a week out and like it hasn't been ramped up as of yet, but it feels like it's not necessarily sliding underneath the radar. But are we over, like, because he won the Masters, are we over Tiger being like, oh my God, can he win? Don't we just kind of expect him to do well now?
Well, I think we do expect him to do well. We're past the can he win, but it's still, the excitement is going to be, I think, palpable. It's going to go through the roof as this revs up, because we have he's in such a different place. The way he ended his round this past Sunday, and all the things that he's saying, and just the physical appearance, like he was sick. He was, I think, more sick than we appreciated at the PGA Championship. And part of that, I believe, was like the simple squeeze of pressure and time between having won the Masters and then having to try to prepare for the PGA Championship. It just wasn't enough time. And, it was a life-altering victory for Tiger. It took him 2 weeks to get his head around it. So being sick the week of the PGA Championship, we should have paid a little more attention. I mean, I think it was like you could have got over 3-1 odds for him to miss the cut like Wednesday night before the PGA Championship started. And if we were paying attention, we should have been on that one, because the 2 things that I think got Tiger, he had to start his Thursday morning round early in the morning on the 10th tee, which is a 25-minute drive from the driving range. That was the other thing that we didn't play, Pat. Will he hit the fairway on the first hole that he plays? The answer was no, not even close, because it's the hardest driving hole on the golf course, and he has to ride in a golf cart for 20 minutes or a little shuttle before he gets there, and it's 7:45 in the morning. It's cold. It's like barely 50 degrees. So we have a couple missed opportunities there. But all that is rearview mirror stuff. He looks so happy. He looks so enthusiastic. He had big smiles. He crushed that golf course on the front nine on Sunday, and he was clearly playing with that sort of, I'll call it that major tournament swagger. He was pin seeking. I mean, his putter let him down. He had makeable putts on 4 and 9 and 10 that really might have made things kind of interesting. Now, Cantlay came out and just closed the door on all of it, but his accuracy for the week, that's 42 out of 56 fairways and 12 out of 14 in the final round. That's the kind of stuff that has, catches people's attention. And I think as we sort of get ramped up after the RBC Canadian and a worthwhile champion put on a jacket if you win the Canadian Open?
No,
jacket?
I think the Royal Bank of Canada just cuts you a check. I think that's it.
A big fat check from the RBC. Come Monday, the Tiger enthusiasm is going to be high because look, if this is it sets up so many ways. Obviously, they were already running. I watched his back nine of his final round yesterday on the Golf Channel. They're going to be running him at Pebble all week long on the Golf Channel. This is another storied classic venue where Tiger has done historical things. And just like at the Masters, this is a golf course that he understands, that he gets, he has a spiritual relationship with. We're going to hear about all that stuff next week. I don't think he's going to be flying under the radar. It feels a smidge like there is. It's ridiculous to say 10-1 is value, but I don't like DJ more than I like Tiger. I don't like DJ at 7-1 more than I like Tiger at 10-1.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you on it. It's just Dustin's so good at this course, and maybe there's too many demons here for him just coming back here, but we've seen him do it at the Pro-Am over and over. He did get outrun by like Ted Potter Jr. 2 years ago, so that's kind of strange. But I'm looking at it right now, like the past 5 winners of the U.S. Open have all been, maybe it's past 7 winners of the U.S. Open, have all been 50-1 or below. Like, you're getting class players winning the U.S. Open year after year after year. So I think that's a good, like, because even to talk about Stenson a little bit, like, I'm seeing him at 80-1 right now. Like, I'm definitely seeing him at 80-1. I'm probably definitely going to bet that, but it just seems like we should really try to limit the pool and maybe attacking the top of the board. Like, I see Tiger at 12-1 to win right now on my book.
Oh, that's terrific. I would, I'm going to pound that. I'm going to send you $100 for your book because I can only get it at 10-1 online right now. But I'm with you. Like, I think there are like 8 guys that can legitimately win this golf tournament in the same way that Koepka talked about, how he imagines the field at majors and why he thinks majors are easier for him. I think there are a whole bunch of guys we can just sort of cross off the list. I don't think this venue in these circumstances is going to have somebody coming from like off the radar. It's going to be one of DJ or Brooks or Tiger or Jordan Spieth or Patrick Cantlay or Hideki or Jason Day. And the wild cards to me are like Molinari and Justin Thomas. Those are guys I'm trying to get. I want to see Justin Thomas in health this week. I want to see whether or not his wrist is completely healed and what kind of rust he's showing, because he missed the cut at the Memorial, having taken a month off, nearly a month off with a wrist problem. So I don't know what to make of him. But like, that's my list. That's it. I don't. There isn't anybody else that I would even really countenance. No way. I'm trusting Rory. I'm never doing anything with that bum Justin Rose. Don't even bother saying Justin Rose to me. And I'm fading all the F boys. I'm out on Fleetwood. I'm out on Finau. I'm out on Fowler. Like, those guys are just not going to come from behind and win the U.S. Open at this venue. It ain't going to happen.
So there are two names. I mean, I don't know if you mentioned the one because we both kind of like Jason Day this week. And the name that at every single major, I picked him to win the PGA Championship, and he got it going real bad to close out his Sunday with 5 consecutive bogeys. But should we be getting more attention to Xander Schauffele?
Yeah, I'm going to bet him. He's available right now on my book at 28 to 1.
That's what I got him at too.
So he deserves the look because he's demonstrated, that he's a big game hunter and he's not cowed by that major stage. And, he definitely is like around the ball. How does he score out on the customized model that you ran, that you just pulled together? Where is he? Is he in the top 15 in that list?
Yeah, he comes in at number 13. I'm going to shrink the sample size from past 50 to past 24 just to see how recently a lot of these guys are doing, because I feel like Kevin Na is going to rate out really highly. Now he's my guy. Where is it? Short. You're gonna buy a bunch of diapers. You got to get to buy diapers because of Kevin Na. Xander Schauffele is 46th in the short term, and that's down from 16th in the past 50 rounds. So he's been playing progressively worse as we've gotten to this point. But that doesn't include the match play, and that doesn't include the Masters, where obviously he was really well because strokes gained data isn't released from those events. So that's something to wait as well. If we do shrink it down to the stats, I readjusted a little bit. I took out 400 to 450 yard and just put in par 4. I added putting into it at a 5% clip just to see if it would shake it up a little bit. So past 24 rounds, we're looking at Brooks, Kuchar, Dustin, Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Tiger, Casey, Keegan Bradley, Rafa Cabrera, Mayo, and Jason Day. Those would be the top 10 all of a sudden.
Yeah, so I mean that covers a lot of the names that we just mentioned.
Yeah, like I'm still kind of intrigued by the Stenson thing. The big outlier for me, there's 2 of them coming in that I don't, because it just feels like if they show up and they play well, they're going to be really good. One is Phil, and I just, with tiny fairways, I know he knows this course. I don't know if I can pull the trigger on that at 50 to 1, but you got Kuchar at 66 is interesting, but Reed at 80. And Reed's either going to show up and be awesome or show up and be a disaster. Those are the 2 polls that you get with Patrick Reed. But he's played really well at Pebble over the years. And if it's going to be sort of, he doesn't need to pull out a driver and smack it around. He can increase his accuracy. Like, the guy is lights out on approaches when he gets it going.
He just haven't. When's the last time you feel like you've seen him get it going?
Wells Fargo was the last time he had it going, and he imploded on Sunday. But through 3 rounds, he was amazing.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. He hasn't been able to put together 4 rounds in what's felt like some time. And the equipment change, the midseason equipment change. He had Titleist make him a set of irons because he finally beat the hell out of the Callaway irons that he'd been playing. Like, they just lost the grooves and their vivacity. So he had Titleist try and replicate it, and that was when his string of like 70 consecutive 78s he went off on. I don't know. It's an all or nothing with Patrick Reed. You said it 100%. I'm going to put a taste on him at top 20, just out of respect for what we've seen out of him in the majors in the last 24 months, and out of respect for his performance at Pebble. But that's all I'm going to do with him.
Any merit to taking just like link style players who are really good? Because Feinberg and I have a bet on Hatton at 125 to 1, he keeps it in the fairway. He grinds. He's good around the green. He's an excellent putter. And if you like ratchet up the conditions, he's really good all of a sudden. The harder the course gets, the better he's going to be. Like Brendan Grace is another player like that. Alex Noren is another player like that. I guess it depends on what the weather forecast ends up looking like. But if we're going to try to say, hey, the winners of the U.S. Open are the elite players in the field, do you think that this course is weird enough with the outside elements and these weird variables that a player like that could end up breaking through?
I think those are attributes are relevant. The only one out of those names that you mentioned that I trust is Hatton. I mean, Brendan Grace already hit his ball in the water standing on the 17th tee in Phoenix with an opportunity to go grab the tournament, reminiscent of knocking the ball over the railroad tracks on the 17th tee in the final round of the U.S. Open. So I'm out on Grace altogether. Hatton, I trust, and Hatton does have a sneaky. I don't have it in front of me right now. I just have this recollection of him with sneaky top 20 performances at the Open Championship, like coming in because he's been able to withstand, the over the course of the the 4 rounds, he treats it like a marathon slog and manages to go grab, something in the top 20, maybe even top 10. I don't have his Open championship stuff in front of me lately.
So Hatton was 51st last year at the Open. He was 5th in 2016, and he was 6th at the U.S. Open a year ago.
Okay, so that makes sense. That's what I'm thinking about with Hatton.
So, and even looking at him right now, the lead-in form, he surprised me by making the cut at the Masters. And he's 48th at the PGA, but that was just a poor putting performance, which is atypical of him. He actually gained ball striking a ton off the tee, which is super shocking. He was 8th at Colonial, which should have some relevancy with the U.S. Open at Pebble being so short, but like the ball striking was on point, the around the green was on point. He had a really good week. At Memorial a week ago, he couldn't putt again, but he was good off the tee. He was good with his approaches. He was good around the green. And if you told me that like there's the 2019 version of Graham McDowell, it would probably be Hatton.
I like that a lot. Yeah, for sure. With if you just add in Hatton's case, the terrific ability to talk to himself.
Yeah, I mean, don't watch. It's like watching Jon Rahm if you have money on him. It's like, oh no, please don't melt down. No, don't smash your driver, John. Don't yell at your caddy. Hatton is weird though, because you see it with him because he's just constantly talking to himself and like yelling at the greens. But it works the other. Like when Rahm is doing that, Rahm is ready to implode. When Hatton starts doing it, it's because he misses like birdie putts. It's really bizarre. Like he doesn't go off the rails because he's constantly pissed all the time.
That's it. It works for him. I agree. He managed to channel that self-loathing into top performances.
So under the radar guys coming out, like, do you have a take on Phil, or is he just a fade?
He's not a fade. I'm going to do something out of nostalgia for him because this is probably the last U.S. Open that he has a legitimate shot at winning. But I'm prepared to say goodbye to that money. Like I will wager. I will put it in. I'll kiss the screen. I'll kiss the keyboard. And say goodbye to that money, but I want to have something on Phil as we enter this because again, he and Tiger both have this long storied relationship with Pebble. They are our sort of golfing eminences here. The storylines around Phil at the U.S. Open. I mean, this is going to be the one. The problem is he could easily miss the cut. Like who the hell knows what he's going to show up with any given week.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't chuck him into my to make the cut parlay. That might be a bit disastrous as we go through.
No.
It feels like Paul Casey should be safe, but hey, it's Paul Casey. You never know, as we found out at the Masters. But like, I'm just looking at these guys. Like, obviously, I'm going to bet Siwoo Kim, who had a nice Pebble performance earlier, and like, I feel like there's no stage too big for Mr. Siwoo Kim. Just because he wins
that's your boy.
Hey, listen, he's a great iron player. Like he might come dead last in the field, but he's been very strong putting on POA this year. And just again, you just go look at his results. He has 3 top 10s. He has like a bunch of missed cuts, but if he's playing well, he should be in the mix. And then obviously, I'm going to have a few shares of Luke List because I can never not have a few shares of Luke List. Tends to play these shorter courses a bit better too. But even this like 100-1 range, you got like Louis and Poulter and Rafa and Kisner and even Haotong and Ryan Moore, and Kevin Na, my guy. Like, am I an idiot for even considering these guys? I guess is my question.
Well, I considering them to win, my answer is yes. Okay. I don't believe we're just not going to get a winner at this venue under these circumstances that's going to be out of that class of player. It's going to be, I really believe it's one of these guys who already have a major on their resume or have been, knocking on the door for too long. And that's Hideki essentially. Hideki and Kuchar are basically like, fit that category. But DJ, Brooks, Tiger, Jordan Spieth, Patrick Cantlay, Molinari, Justin Day, Justin Thomas, I think the winner's coming from that group.
So if we have to throw down right now on one guy, I think the guy I'd throw down on is Jason Day.
Oh, wow. I love it. 25-1 right now in my book.
Oh, I got him 28-1 right now. And I bet you, because the odds will see a big shuffle on Monday, especially if Brooks, DJ, or Rory win the Canadian Open, all of a sudden that guy will be the favorite. But were they're already the favorites? Like I right now I see Brooks at 7, Dustin at 8, and Rory at 16. So if Rory wins, he goes up to 10 or 8. And then it pushes down the Spieths, the Roses, the Rahms, the Days, the Molinari. So instead of 25 or 28, you might be able to get a 30, a 33. Just anyone who's not playing this week, I don't see their number going up. So I think it's a good time to wait on that sort of thing.
I love it. And Day is exactly now the only thing is with him, he's showing up on your customized analysis.
But that
is still
but that is only when I set the course rating to difficult. On neutral, he's like 40th, but if you ratchet up to difficult, he's inside the top 5.
His strokes gain approach has sucked this year.
Yeah, he's not good.
Like in the 140 range.
Yeah, it's bad. He lost 4.5 at Memorial. He actually gained 3.5 at the PGA Championship, lost at Wells Fargo. The weird thing with him is he's such a good putter and he's so good around the green that, like I talk about like a Ben Ann performance, or even like we talk about Molinari, that if this guy can just have a decent putting week, like he's going to be in the mix. It's sort of the inverse for both Spieth and Jason Day, that if they just have a decent irons week, like they're going to win.
That's right. 100%. That's why both of them have to be on the ticket, as far as I'm concerned. And Spieth now, he's been talking to his therapist. It's apparent, and they've been focusing. So if you go from the giant funnel of problems that he had as the year began, it feels like the funnel's shrinking. We now have all of his issues basically consolidated down into a single bad thing, and it's Sunday. He just has to now. They have to have a one long, maybe a 2-hour therapy session. He gets a nice pillow. He's on his back, and they talk about Sunday scoring, because the Sunday scoring is still north of 72. And if that changed, the 3 straight top 10s that he's had might be 2 wins. And we know he's certainly got everything you want in terms of the bona fides coming in to Pebble. The ball striking still continues to be, and it's really stunning. Like, he missed greens from the fairway on Sunday at Memorial. I don't know what the numbers ended up being, but God, it just felt like, what are you doing, Jordan? Don't you want to go try and win this golf tournament?
I mean, his best case right now, he's just been such a luck box that hit it to 50 feet from the hole and make the putt, which he's been doing, or just miss the green and chip it in. Like, he has more chip ins already this season than he has at any other point of his career. Like, yes, he's good around the greens, but there's such an element of luck that goes along with that it's not sustainable. I'm looking at Day right now. So his finishes at the Pro-Am over the past: 4th, 2nd, 5th, 11th, 4th, 21st, 6th. And he actually gained 3 strokes on approach earlier this year on the Pebble Beach course exclusively. The 2 years before, he lost 2.6, lost 2.5 on approach, and still came 2nd and 5th. So if you can just get like one positive, he's good enough around the greens to save himself. He's good enough with the putter. The degree of difficulty is always higher for him. But if the winning score can be like -2 to +2, I just think he's very live.
I'm with you. I love this now. You're really talking me into this. 28-1. I need to send you 100 for him and 100 for Tiger at 12-1.
Yeah, there we go. I mean, Tiger's odds, he might be the one guy whose odds change just because it's Tiger, and then all the money will just start coming. Like, Brooks and Tiger are just going to be bet to hell. So I'm trying to figure out my DraftKings strategy. Do I just not play them? Because I haven't played Brooks at the Masters, and I didn't play him at the PGA Championship, and big spoiler alert, I lost all my money. So I don't know if I want to go down that route again, but it only takes one. I just need to have one super positive major, and all of a sudden I'm just huge in the black for the season. So I can look at that. Last thing I want to talk to you about. I really like the Fox coverage. I wish they had more golf. That's just a statement I'm throwing out there.
I happen to 100% agree with you. I think that I watched quite a bit, I'm going to confess this, of the Women's Open Championship, the Women's U.S. Open here in the United States over this past weekend, won by Julie Six, notwithstanding Han Caney's,
Hey, listen, if there's one thing we got out of that, is that Han Caney picks winners.
So dumb.
He took a victory lap for picking the winner. It was just absolutely incredible.
I mean, I can't talk about it. I'm probably contractually banned from talking about it, honestly.
Fair enough.
But I loved watching that golf course. I wanted to see the golf course because it's it's one of these golden age architects designed and built facilities. I think it's a Seth Rayner, and I loved the way it looked, and I loved watching the women play it because the women are so relatable to my game. It's like, oh, those are the kind of yardages I would likely have hitting in here. Oh, right, it's driver hybrid for this 440 yard, par four. Because I don't know if you know this about me, I don't hit the ball 330 yards at this stage of my life. I know it's hard to believe, but the Fox coverage I thought was great. I like the combination of like a whole bunch of voices. So they had Faxon, they had Shane Bacon, they had Zinger, and then Joe Buck. So you're not sitting listening to Joe Buck all by himself going sort of on and on and on. And I like the no commercial break thing really sets a pace. I feel like where it's easy to like go ahead and focus if you want to watch, some golf for a little while. Your brain's not getting pulled away into a different place. So I found the pacing of it very good, and I've liked what they've tried to do tech wise with the shot tracer stuff.
Yeah, they had a lot of really cool cameras the last 2 years, like their bunker cams are super sharp, and the online feeds that they just give away where it's not just featured groups. Like you can get sort of whole coverage. You can almost watch all the shots if you want to, because that's the place where we need to get to with golf, where I can just go on demand and be like, you know what? I bet on Brian Stewart. I want to watch Brian Stewart. I might be the only person on the planet, but just charge me $10. I can watch Brian Stewart hit all of his shots. So I know you talk to a lot of these like upper end people on the TV side. They got no time for old Pat Mayo. But if you can pass this along to them, I am available for the gambling feed for all of this. Basically golf red zone. That's all I want. That's all the people want. Anyone who bets on golf, anyone who plays DraftKings golf, they just want the ability to have almost like, remember on DirecTV, you'd have like the NASCAR dashboard cam and you can just be in there. Just throw a fucking camera on a caddy. I don't care. I just want to be able to see in real time what's going on.
And well, how about this? You as is always the case, the Masters is the one that announced this year that you can watch every single shot by every single player. They have the technology, and they're going to insist on producing it that way. So that's perfect. But I love this gambling red zone, the golf red zone. That's a whole nother thing. Like, how about this? I want to go around the horn and check on all my matchups. You can do the daily matchups, the tournament matchups, like all by itself. Let's go look at this matchup, and let's look at as Tommy Fleetwood was imploding on the front nine at Bethpage. I had him in a tournament matchup against Jason Day. He beat Jason Day's ass through the first 3 rounds. He had 4 strokes on him going into Sunday afternoon. And then Tommy Fuckface Fleetwood went out there and blew up with I think he finished with either a 79 or an 80. And I flushed the money that I was feeling pretty confident about right down the old F toilet. But if I had the gambling golf red zone, I would have been able to really enjoy that. I would have hate watched Tommy as he blew up and probably relished it a little bit. I would have started betting against him on holes too. That's another thing with the golf red zone that we're talking about here. The opportunity to bet hole by hole, I mean, that would be incredible.
Yeah, it would be, and this is where we're going with all the tech that we have. If the tech is in place in order to watch like hole by hole on a live stream, like you can get a feel for how guys are hitting it off the tee instead of just looking like, even when you bring up the Tiger numbers from Memorial, like those fairways are huge. You should be hitting a ton of fairways there. But if you just see that guys are spraying it around, well, I'm going to go to the next hole and bet against them to miss the fairway. Or you see how their long irons are and they're just off with those, well, I'll bet them to miss the green. Like those are bets that are available to people right now. So it would work one of 2 ways. I could be like the John Hansen or Scott Hansen, whatever the hell his name is, from the Red Zone channel. Scott Hansen. Yeah. So yeah, John Hansen's the other, like the fantasy football guru guy. A lot of Hansens involved with football, but like you can have like the main feed. So instead of like the regular feed where they show you Tiger and Phil, like here are the guys around the cut. Like if this guy moves up a shot, let's check in on him. Does he has a 12-foot par putt? If he misses, this brings like 80 guys back into the field. So I think there's that element of it too. And then you just have the on-demand stuff. Like if you're on your computer and you have access to these feeds, why can't you bring up 8 screens at once? I want to follow this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. And they're just on your screen. Like if the tech is available, we should have access to it. And I don't care what it costs because I'll pay it.
We're not that far away, I feel like, with the majors. And a couple other venues where every single year, it's the same. They can replicate the setup. Without too much trouble. I agree with you. You ought to be able to do that.
So that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Joe, this has been like 4 years in the making. So I want to thank you for actually coming on. This is amazing.
Yeah, wait till we actually meet. We should play together and have a meal, Pat Mayo. We can break out our handsome sports jackets and see if you can trigger your audience to oblivion.
You are a bit older than I am, but I bet you I still hit it shorter off the tee than you do.
I mean, okay, that's fine. Who cares? It's golf. We're not professionals. We're going to go have fun.
Yeah, that's all I'm there for. I'm going to shoot my 98 and I'm going to go on my way. Just don't make me play from the tips because that is just going to be a disaster for me. We'll play from
we don't do that.
Play from the whites. That'll be good enough for us. But tell everyone what is coming up on The Ringer Podcast Network on Fairway Rollin for US Open Week.
Yeah, next week we have 2 shows coming up. Monday afternoon, our usual kind of set the stage show, working on guests still, but we will have, as always, Chris Vernon will have some picks. We're going to talk to Megan Schuster about what's going on with Golf Social. We're going to have probably a couple folks to talk about storylines. And then on Wednesday, we get sort of serious about, allocating a little capital. We're going to really lay into the angles a little bit. Justin Ray from the 15th Club, the former data guru for the Golf Channel. He's now with the 15th Club. He joined them in March of this year, and he's been on the show twice this year in advance of each of the majors, giving out some great angles and some great names in terms of what the data is suggesting guys to look at and guys to fade. And then our beloved Harry Gagnon from Against All Odds, Cousin Sal's Against All Odds, comes on, and he and I hash out a useless ticket of losers. But we'll try and include a winner maybe this time. Maybe we're due.
Yeah, listen, I always say that I'm due, then it turns out that I'm never due. Unless someone between the odds of 30-1 and 100-1 wins, there's no chance that I'm hitting that winner. Kevin Na is the first guy to fall in those odds in like 4 months to win a tournament, and we hit him. Anyone else, I'm losing.
It pays for the whole season, though. You're good. You just won your season. Congrats.
I bet enough that, it pays for like 5 weeks. I'm good at I'm good at losing money, all right?
I'm right there with you. At least you got to buy a couple diapers. That's the important thing. Congrats on that.
Thank you very much. At Justin Ray Golf, by the way, people don't follow Justin Ray. He is one of the best Twitter follows in the entire golf sphere. So everyone should just follow Justin Ray. Maybe I'll try to steal him from you at some point. Get him on my show as well to break down some of this data. I don't need him telling me the data I look at is bad, though. I can't take that.
He's very generous, and there's no reason that we can't share, Pat Mayo.
See, that works out for me. All right, Joe House, you can follow him on Twitter and the Instas at House from DC. Subscribe to the Fairway Rolling podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network. And if you want to get into a draw for 20 DK bucks, smash the like, leave your DraftKings handle, tell me who you think is going to win the US Open, or all you need to do is follow me on Instagram at the PME, like one of the US Open videos or photos or whatever pops up, and leave your DraftKings handle in the comment section. You'll be in a draw for both the $20 and $100 giveaways for the DraftKings Millionaire Maker. And then just subscribe, rate, and review the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever. 5 stars, something nice, and your DraftKings handle, and boom, you'll be in the draw for that. I got Feinberg on Monday morning, along with the most cursed person in the world, coming off picking a winner with Patrick Cantlay. So we'll see what he does. The super mega DraftKings show on Tuesday with Rick Gaiman and Ben Rosen in the live chat. Wednesday, Cut Sweat Live with me and Feinberg. On Friday, we got all your US Open needs right here. So check it out. All right, I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Pat Mayo Experience! Experience!